At this point, I believe the only Giger film that truly had come out that had his stamp of approval was Alien. The production design work that Giger did on Alien, from the creature to the sets, looked as though it actually came from the mind of an alien. And that blew me away because it was so different. And so I thought, damn, this is going to be good. So I was really, really excited to work with Giger on this.
For Giger, it was always the concept. You know, when a script got to him, whether it was from somebody out of film school or an underground person or a major studio, a lot depended on how he felt about the script and how he felt about the people involved. Brian Gibson visited him much earlier, back in 1982, in relationship to The Tourist. And that's one of Giger's many film involvements that were not realized. So they already knew each other. And Gibson went to Zurich to meet with Giger on Poltergeist 2, I believe in 1984. I know that he was a great fan of Julian Beck and the Living Theater, and he would have probably done this film just to meet Julian Beck. Giger handled the Poltergeist 2 script much the way he handled all of the other scripts, and had them translated to German so he would be able to get into the story rather than just read the sections that required his designs. And if it caught his imagination, he would start sketching pretty much immediately. It was the way he generated his ideas, sketches, drawings. He would redraw the same thing, improve it, and for that reason, recently we counted, there are 172 drawings just for Poltergeist 2, which finally resulted in 25 or 26 actual paintings. Giger not only would do drawings and sketches for his film designs, but they would be annotated with all of his ideas on how they should be filmed, how they should be lit, what angles, and all of the work, at least the drawings and the paintings, took place in his home in Zurich. He was very comfortable there. He didn't like to travel very much, partially because of his cat. He never really liked to leave the cat at home alone. In fact, there are film projects that didn't happen because it would have required his presence over in the US or the UK for several months, and he couldn't be away from the cat that long. I think he had a professional relationship with Boss Films. He wasn't always happy with the execution of his ideas, but he didn't view them as the enemy, for sure.
Oh, Giger, yeah, he was quite a character. And I mean, Giger's this necrophile. I mean, he's a strange artist. I mean, he's a really talented guy, and you know, he and Salvador Dali were pals. I mean, and both of those have their sort of illustrative styles. And Giger's style is such that is so pervasive that the modern monster designers can't help but include his influence in their designs. again, Giger wasn't around, and he had a young guy who he would send drawings over to this guy, and this young guy would do sculptures, and then from those sculptures we would make castings.
Connie DeFries was Giger's assistant who substituted for him in Hollywood during the production. Connie was one of Giger's, or at the time, Giger's sculptor, literally his right-hand man.
Connie was basically making a maquette, sculpting the pieces that the Giger's vision is supposed to be. Of course, we watched his sculptures, and if anything that we can adapt it, to the final piece, we did.
The designs veered slightly off Giger's direction because each sculptor had to interpret things.
For example, Great Beast, he made a bunch of heads, the Giger heads. And I think we used his sculpture over a bunch of heads that is made of.
Things could get tense, I imagine, because he was there as Giger's representative, so he also had a strong obligation to keep work as closely as possible to the way he knew Giger would like it and had envisioned it. From what I hear, there were some frantic phone calls between Connie DeFries in Hollywood and Giger back in Zurich. Connie was probably letting Giger know that, listen, the work is getting away from the way you envisioned it. I think you should be here. Giger went to the production uninvited, on his own, paid for his own ticket, and I believe showed up pretty much unannounced. Now, Connie had warned him that it was really too late to change very much, and there was not much to be gained by any heavy criticism. So he complimented everyone on their work, and he was gracious, and it was a good visit.
Giger came down, and we are very excited to meet the man. He was pretty quiet, just looking around, watching all the progress of what we have made.
I mean, we had huge lithographs of these amazing creatures, from the Great Beast to the Vomit character's transformation. And it was just outstanding work. And I really, really, really wanted to please him on that show. And so that was a huge bonus. I learned an enormous secret of sculpture, something that I carry with me to this day, from working with Giger on Poltergeist 2. And here's what it was. I learned to sculpt hyper-realistically through the Dick Smith Rick Baker School. To almost over-sculpt, to make everything perfectly symmetrical, perfectly handsome. Just push in on it and see the pore texture and just... But what I learned when I worked with Giger was the quicker you get an idea out of your head into the real world, the closer it's going to be to your initial thought process and your initial creative process. Because you're vomiting it out. You're not going to have time to overthink it. You're not going to have time to stand back and go, I don't know, let me change it. It just comes out like vomit, and it's as pure as you can be. And that's Giger's style of painting. If you take a look, even in his heyday, he worked fast, really fast, because he wanted to stay close to his idea. And so in working, because I did several sculptures, I did the Great Beast head, I don't even remember how many sculptures I did on that, many sculptures. But again, getting Cornelius's and Giger's feedback, that was always too perfect, it was always too finished. And I'm like, what do they know? I learned from Rick Baker. But then I started thinking about it, and I would look at Giger's work, and I would look at my sculpture, I'm like, he's right. Mine's too perfect, it's too finished. And so I just started working as fast as humanly possible. My fingers would just blur. I'd have Giger's paintings, Giger's sketches, and just go, and my sculptures Instead of taking a matter of 2 weeks, I could get sculptures done in a matter of hours. And they actually were truer to Giger's designs. And that's a really good thing to have learned. I really respect him for that. I'll always be thankful.
Giger liked very much the worm, and he liked very much the primitive creature. He thought that those were executed very well. I think the only criticism he had of the primitive creature, that it scurried away too fast. He thought that the weight of it would have indicated that it should be more lumbering and struggling. So he was also concerned about how things were shot. He looked at it pretty much from two perspectives. How it would appear to your average viewer and how it affected him as the person who came up with the design and how successfully it was executed. Giger was not happy with the Great Beast, and I think he wasn't happy with the way it appeared on screen. I don't think it meant that he was disappointed in the sculpting necessarily. In fact, Connie de Vries did quite a few of the faces in the Great Beast.
HR was Hans, shall we say, was he's a real artist's artist. If it does not come from his hands, he thinks it's awful. I don't think has put his name on a film in his entire career where he's actually pleased with the work. And yeah, he crucified our work on that film and Richard Edlund.
Whenever Giger was disappointed, about film, he would actually work it out in sketches and drawings. So we have some pretty risque drawings where Giger put his anger into a drawing.
And he used to send these unbelievable pornographic necrophilic faxes. I've got them somewhere.
Giger was an artist. He was not in the film industry. Really. Giger didn't have a film agent. Normally, if you're looking for more film projects in Hollywood, you're going to be with a Hollywood agent, and you'd be getting scripts all the time. That was not the case. And he wasn't really soliciting either. It was nice when a film project came along because you'd get a chunk of money and he'd be doing what he likes, and it would fire him up.
The thing about Giger is that while he's a great artist, I keep saying he is, let's just go with that. While he's a great artist, he doesn't understand the film industry at all.
Well, I don't think Giger ever came to terms with the idea that film is a collaborative project, and not just between the rightful collaborators, writer, director, actors, designers, but every person whose name runs in the list of 2,000 names at the end of a film. Giger's credit in Poltergeist 2 was concept artist, and indeed it was quite correct, at least from the way Hollywood viewed Giger, or Boss Films viewed Giger. He was generating concepts for them, to be used as inspiration, as a point of departure, to fire their own creativity and imagination, which is the way Hollywood works. I don't think Giger understood that. I always had mixed feelings about Giger's involvement with Hollywood because I was able to observe how that affected his standing in the fine art world, especially in Switzerland. So there were times when I said to him that I wish you hadn't done that film Alien, or really any of them, because it had pigeonhole you in some way. And back then, many people would dismiss his film work as commercial art and not give his paintings serious consideration in the art world. And this problem was mostly at home in Switzerland. And he would respond, no, 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 you know, it made me famous. Many more people know my work now.
Giger, like Sid Mead, never sells his art. He only gives you prints, and he'll only give you a copy of it, but he retains all of the originals.
All of the original paintings from Poltergeist 2, I believe, hang at the Giger Museum. In terms of the art world, I think Giger's commercial work, which would include the films, work for hire, where the ideas were sparked by words on a page rather than his imagination, they would have a lesser value, except for the fans of the films. I think probably because Poltergeist 2 was not the big success that the first film was, there hasn't been as much written about it, and Giger himself didn't write all that much about it. The Poltergeist work is very well covered in the book H.R. Giger's Biomechanics. I think there's 20 pages of paintings and drawings, and also in Giger's film design book, but there isn't as much text as Giger had written about Alien or Species or many of his other projects. I think if it had been more successful, there would have been many, many, many more interviews, and we would know more about Giger's deepest perspectives on it. Watching the film recently, I see that most of his designs, one way or another, made it into the film, although only somebody who had seen the initial drawings and then the final product be able to recognize them just from their shape. I mean, the technology wasn't there to do digital clouds and flames that come alive and smoke beasts, you know, as we have them today. So ingenious methods were found to approximate them, and for the purpose of the film, they worked. While he was often disappointed in the execution of his work as it appeared on the screen, ironically, I don't think Giger's disappointment was a matter of ego, where he thought not enough of his work was in the film. I think in some cases, and probably also true for Poltergeist 2, probably felt that they had too much screen presence and too much time was allowed to examine them and see their shortcomings. I think one of the sad things when anyone dies is the loss of his memories and all the things that he didn't have the time to commit to paper. I think if he was doing this interview instead of me, he would have a lot more to say. And I think he would wish that he was here.